G'day, I'm Stephen Page from Page Provan Family Fertility Lawyers, and you're watching and listening to the Australian Family and Fertility Law podcast. If you're watching this on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe. We love our subscribers. Today I'm talking about the New South Wales 5-women limit. The New South Wales Assisted Reproductive Technology Act 2007 sets out a family limit and for use of donated gametes, in other words, eggs, sperm and embryos created from donated eggs and sperm. And you've got to have a limit, because if you don't have a limit, then we have the horror stories of the past and some of the stories we're seeing with private donation of kids being born and having huge numbers of multiple siblings. The limit has typically in Australia been seen as 10 families, and New South Wales, however, legislated in 2007 said we're going to define it as 5 women. And then they made some changes a few years later and said, well, if the woman's got a female partner, then she's under that cap as well. But this 5 women, where do these 5 women come from? The legislation is silent. And if you look at standard statutory interpretation principles, you'd say the 5 women come from New South Wales. Because there's an old principle of legislation that says, well, you might legislate on the face of it, it applies to the world, but unless you clearly state it's to the world, it's not. It's here and now. And the classic example is New South Wales law that says you have to drive on the left of the road. When you look at the law, it doesn't say you have to drive on the left of the road when you're in New South Wales, it just says you have to drive on the left of the road. If you applied that to the world in general and happen to be driving in, for example, Los Angeles, so well, I'm complying with New South Wales law, of course you're not. You're committing an offence in California. So I just give that as a simple example. But New South Wales Health has taken the view that the 5 women are worldwide. And what's been the impact? The impact has been terrible. The cost of sperm, much of which is imported from the United States, has skyrocketed, going from a cost of about $2,000 to up to $40,000 to $60,000. Why? Because if you're running a US sperm bank and you're sending it to Australia and they say, well, you've got to comply with this and it's 5 women worldwide, rather than distribute the sperm to various places, you say, you can get all the sperm, but you must buy the lot. And so, depending on how much this man has produced, you buy the lot. And if you can't use it, well, tough luck. That's it. There's your allocation. It's just going to 5 women in New South Wales. And if you're the only buyer, well, you're the only buyer. What's the outcome? Unless you're wealthy, you can't access sperm in New South Wales. Entirely predictable, this outcome. What was the first thing that you would say? Well, the cost's gone up. Well, that's happened. What's the second thing that you would say would happen? Well, women would vote with their feet and go interstate. Well, I've heard that there have been delays of up to 4 months in seeing fertility specialists in Canberra. If you're sitting in Sydney, what would you do? Drive down the road to Canberra to see the closest specialist interstate. The third thing that would happen, well, you'd go overseas. So there's been an increase in women going overseas to Europe, to Africa, to America. All entirely, utterly predictable. And the next one, well, you'd be going to private donors. The private donors who don't have a family limit. So really counterintuitive. You've got this family limit, you've got it in the legislation. The biggest risk is with private donors who are not regulated, and there are many, I've acted for private donors who are entirely appropriate, and I've acted for intended parents through private donation where it's been entirely appropriate, but there are some who are happy to keep going because they like doing so and create huge families. And there have been horror stories of that happening. Some of those have occurred in Australia. So it's actually encouraging women, forcing women to go to private donation. And of course, the last one is they give up. So those who would otherwise have become parents do not, because it's too hard. Now, I know that there's certainly pushback on this, but New South Wales Health, at least at the time of recording this video in June 2020, 26 has been steadfast in its interpretation, and we'll see if any of the pushback and lobbying has any effect, but at the moment they are determined that the 5 women are 5 women worldwide. Thanks for watching and listening. I'm Stephen Page from Page Provan Family and Fertility Lawyers. This is the Australian Family and Fertility Law podcast. If you're watching this on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe. We love our subscribers. Thank you.